I'd like to call the Village of Wolverine Lake Council meeting to February 13th to order. Please stand to the pledge of the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Scott.
Here.
York.
Yes, here.
Here.
Pedro.
Here.
Clement.
Here.
Bill.
Here.
Al.
Here.
Okay, we have correspondence-wise, we have a thank you note from Mr. Smith, and I'll read it real quick here. Village Council, Mike Conduct, and staff, I want to thank you for this opportunity to serve as the next village administrator / clerk for Wolverine Lake. Look forward to many years of service and getting to know you all. I look forward to March 11th. I can't wait to get started. Thank you, Mike Smith. So, with that, and we have Linda Hyduck from, she's District Director from Jim Rusted's office, and I'm just going to introduce her real quick to everybody and let her address us. So.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Nice to see some familiar faces, and I met a lot of new people here tonight, which was my purpose. I am here to represent Senator Runsted's office and to let everyone know that we are available to you. We're honored to serve the citizens of Wolverine Lake, and that if you ever have any issues, questions, or even if you just want to give us a piece of your mind sometimes, we're available for you. We're accessible. And I wanted to also give our web address, which is senatorjimrunstead.com. And Jim's personal email, senatorjrunstead@senate.michigan.gov. And feel free to contact us if you need anything at all. And I'll be paying visits periodically to find out what's going on in the village, and I just wanted to let you know we're here for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Okay, as far as additions to business,
I have some.
okay,
I'd like to discuss the Park and Recreation's minutes, okay? And also, when Mr. Powell comes up, questions regarding looking into the discussion we had as council a few months back with Wakedo.
okay, let's see, this first one we'll put, the Parks and Rec Board, we'll put on item 4, I guess.
It's on the agenda.
Is it?
So you take it off the consent agenda and put it
Oh, that's
under
right, yeah, I'm sorry.
new business 12,
12,
I guess, N.
okay. And then, I'll remove that from consent. And then Mr. Powell's subject will be under, like that, G2. Okay. And the only other change I think we have is under 12A1. We had a email, I believe, from Mr. Kelly, who's just showing up, and he did not want to be on ZBA. So, is that correct?
That's me?
Yes?
Yeah, you're right.
Okay. So we'll delete A1.
Just remove that.
Yep, just remove it. So with that, first call to the public. It's an opportunity for citizens to address council on agenda items only, so. Anybody in public want to discuss anything on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move past that. And move on to approval of the consent agenda with the removal of the water board and Parks and Rec minutes.
Make that motion.
Second.
Motion by Malik, second by Duff. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
York.
Yes.
Sinkwitz.
Yes.
Pedro.
Yes.
Clement.
Yes.
Duff.
Yes.
Malik.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Okay, we get to move on to public hearings, which we have none, so we'll move to new business 12B, recommendation from Parks and Rec Board to appoint Molly Ingraham to the Park Board for a term expiring 12/31/20.
Yeah, can we do both Molly and James Kelly at the same time?
Yeah, we
One
can
motion?
do that, sure.
Motion?
That's a motion.
I'll second that.
And both 12/31/20, so that's a motion by Dumont, second by Duff to appoint Molly Ingraham and Jim Kelly to the Park Board. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Welcome, Molly. Welcome, James. Welcome.
So we get to swear him in.
Come on up, guys.
Okay, if you'll raise your right hand and repeat after me, please. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this state,
and the Constitution of this state,
and that I will faithfully perform
that I will faithfully perform
the duties of the office of Park and Rec Board
the duties of the office of Park and Rec Board
in and for the Village of Wolverine Lake,
in and for the village of Wolverine Lake,
County of Oakland,
County of Oakland,
State of Michigan,
State of Michigan,
according to the best of my abilities,
according to the best of my abilities,
so help me God.
so help me God. Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, great. Sign them in, okay. So, thanks for stepping up to the board. Okay, the 3 was consent agenda, so we'll move on to item C, recommendation from Water Management Board.
Did we go through 3? Council release the budget funds?
That was on consent
Oh,
agenda.
forgive me, yeah.
Yep. So, they want to move ahead with scheduled maintenance on the
Not-
aerators, is
not
that
move
correct?
ahead.
Not move ahead.
Not move ahead.
Yep, that's right, okay.
That's good, yep.
And request to return to the compressors to the storage at the village here, so.
Do we need a motion for that?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion.
Yeah, we do need a motion for it, yeah.
That's a motion by Singlet, second by
Sure.
Duff.
Second.
Sure.
Any discussion?
Yeah, just one question. I don't know how far the discussion has gone, but I've been pretty vocal that I thought that the aerators were not going to work in this lake. But I think that a couple aerators down at the very end of Penny Lake, near South Commerce there, if they,
There are 2 there.
there are 2
There
there
are,
that
yeah.
they should be kept, just because it's a stagnant area, and without the aerators, it gets slimy in there, starts to get that odor of dead grass.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if that's something that could be,
Well, it's not possible. Let me backtrack that statement a little bit. Our permit goes through basically to the end of May, 1st of June area. So we could actually reignite every aerator. Okay, and I suppose we could keep them running until the DEQ, DNR came flying through and said we're out of permit. In order to continue forward, we would need to expend about $14,000 to meet the requirements of additional testing and benchmarking. And as I think council knows, members of the board, the state senator before, Mr. Rumsfeld, as well as the rep and 3 citizens attended a meeting of 4 to 5 hours with the DEQ. We were trying to negotiate our way out of that testing and said the possibility of going ahead would, something we would move on if we could be somewhat guaranteed that we could move the aerators to deep holes. The water board had quotes, the cost to do that, and the DEQ would not commit to that. So, as you might have noticed in the water board meetings, we're meeting with Wayne State. We feel we can get that testing done in coordination with Paul, our limnologist, for less than half that cost. So we're gonna watch what's going on in Duck Lake. They're spending, I think, $360,000, or have spent $360,000 to put aeration in it. And it won't hurt our equipment to leave it in the water. We have that in writing from our current provider, ex-provider, and we're just looking for space to put those compressors. There's no sense spending $2,000 on them.
What about the electrical supplies that we have in place?
I had conversations with Mike on that today. We're checking, is it fair to say, Mike, we're gonna be at least determining if there's some supply charge, minimum supply charge. There are breakers there, so even if you shut the breakers down, I'm not sure there's a.
Yeah, so the charging is gonna happen via your meter.
Yeah,
So even if your power is off, so even if there's no draw, your meter still clicks along at a certain.
yeah, certain
Things are
rate.
discharged. And they're gonna charge you a minimum for that
Yeah,
anyway.
I think in a house I see it $7 or
Yeah,
something when
something
I
like
shut
that.
down electricity on houses that were foreclosed on,
I'm
so.
sure the disconnects are probably locked out and stuff.
Probably.
I would hope so. If not, that'd probably be something to look at. Just
Okay.
so nobody can energize it, right?
Call for the vote.
Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Sinkowitz?
Yes.
Pedro?
Yes.
Dumont?
Yes.
Duff?
Yes.
Malik?
Yes.
Scott?
Yep,
York?
Yes.
Okay, moving on to item D. Ordinance 106, 110. That's to amend the site design regulations, part 12, planning and zoning code ordinances of the village of Wolverine Lake by repealing 127808 fences, arbors, and trellises in its entirety and replacing it with the new section, which was introduced last month.
Right, so you could actually adopt D and E together. They run hand in hand. One's the definitions
Right, the
and the other
definition,
one's
and the other one's
Yep.
Yep.
I'll make that motion.
Support. Motion by Duff, second by Sinkowitz to adopt ordinance 106, 110, A, 106A, 111. Any discussion? All in favor?
I just have a question, because I
Yeah.
think the public might ask. So
Mhm.
I have, in the new ordinance for shrubs in the front yard, I have some that are like 4 feet tall that were there when I bought the house. I plan to take them out anyways, but is there gonna be like a time limit? I'm sure people are gonna ask that question.
Well, you can have shrubs in your front yard, it's just a matter of.
No, they're 30
if it's a
inches now,
fence. If
right?
it's a fence, though,
Yeah.
a landscape fence, by definition.
Okay, but they like cover, mine like cover the whole, right down, I mean, there's a fence there too, but then there's the shrubs that are like.
Landscaping.
So anyways, I'm taking them out anyways, but I'm just, there might be some other people there in the same situation as
Oh,
me.
there is,
remember,
yeah.
it might not be able
There's
to
lots of
reclaim.
them.
Yeah, that's all right. I don't care about that. There you go.
It becomes, and I agree, I have some, okay? I parallel my deck, all right? You know, they're 3 feet off the deck, and they're probably as high as this right now, you know, our bench table here. You know, I mean, is this something the code enforcement officer is gonna walk around and say, geez, that's 32 inches high? You know, I mean, where's the limit on this? It's
Well, that
kind of
ordinance has
a,
been in effect for quite a while.
Right, so that section wasn't part of the amendment. That was
Nothing was
already in
changed on
place.
that.
well, no, again, I never paid attention to it, but now that it's brought up,
Yeah.
I'm looking at it, okay? And
So-
I
It's
just
an
think
old
it's,
ordinance.
my own personal feeling, it's kind of foolish, but
There's no time frame in, like you were asking, so
Yeah.
it's not like you have 10 days or 30
Okay.
days. It's effective when you adopt it. However, it's prior to the adoption of the ordinance is grandfathered under zoning. But it's an enforcement issue, really. It's your code enforcement officer.
And it's a
is
maintenance
gonna-
issue also.
Can I address?
Yeah, please.
On this. Mr. Malik, I believe yours run alongside your house, is that correct? That isn't considered a fence.
okay, but
What you're looking at is when you have a divider, such as between property lines towards the road, when plans are positioned to create a fence.
Intentionally.
It's not for the decorative ones around the homes and things of that nature, which yours are. Because when you said that last time, I went, I don't remember those being out by the road. It's up by the deck.
I understand. But,
Those are not, that is not a fence. Those are, that's
See,
considered something.
and you know where my house is, John. It is inside the road right away. It is at my property line, okay? But again, my house is non-conforming when it was built 40-some years ago. they have to be variances because it doesn't have a 20, on a corner lot, don't have 25-foot setback and things. So, and that's the reason I asked the questions,
Probably a
okay?
good chance that those bushes were in there before the ordinance was passed.
Well, you're gonna have to move
Sure
your
mine
house.
Yeah, hey,
Get rid of the kitchen.
That is not the intent of the law, and that's.
No,
And that is not gonna be the intent of the ordinance enforcement as well. And I am sure that, our department did ordinance enforcement for many years, and that is not part of our intent. And I
Well,
don't
again,
think
I
that-
just bring it up because, you know, there are gonna be other people with circumstances, and that's the reason I asked the questions. So, thank you.
Okay. We get to call for a vote, I guess.
Yep.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. And the last one was the introduction of ordinance 121A-1, which was basically that was for the
Opt out.
opt-out of the marijuana.
No, this is the opt-out. Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. We have
Yeah.
another ordinance dealing with marijuana, but I don't actually think that's on this agenda, or controlled substances, so this is your opt-out.
Right, and that was introduced last month also.
Yeah.
So, motion to adopt that, I guess.
The opt-out ordinance was adopted at the last meeting. This is the new language
is?
that had.
Yeah, that was done at the last
This
meeting.
is not,
I believe she's right, we did the opt-out at the last meeting. Yeah, I read that, I was a
Okay,
little
yeah, yeah.
confused.
so what this is, and we discussed this when we had talked about the opt-out ordinance, because you now have legalized recreational marijuana in the state of Michigan, you had a little tiny section in your controlled substances ordinance, which is what this is. I was reading this
And we are
facilities
introducing
licensing.
tonight.
You're
That's what we're
introducing.
doing.
Introduction.
So we had to just change a couple words in here because you have legalized recreational marijuana now, and before this section only recognized Michigan Medical Marijuana Act.
Right,
And
okay.
we need to now recognize the Michigan Marijuana Facilities Licensing Act.
Alrighty,
That's all this does.
I make a motion to introduce.
Second.
motion second by Duff. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Can I make a quick comment on?
Yes,
the
please.
Marijuana, the opt-out we did last council meeting. We also need to notify Lara,
Right.
the Licensing and Regulations Bureau in Lansing, to let them know that we opted out, so they can put us on a list with all the other opt-out village and townships and cities, because they are going to be approving licenses for those who haven't necessarily opted out, but we need to make sure that they are aware we did opt out.
I thought that Nathan maybe worked on that before he left.
I don't know that you notified Laura, we're not on the list,
Okay.
because we had an email going back and forth amongst
Yeah.
the chiefs, and the village was not on there, so I want
Okay.
to make sure that we do get on there, so
All right.
there's there were 80 last week that adopted out.
So we need,
There's a specific, I'll send you the information, Mike,
That's what I
for
said.
Laura and the county. You have to send them specific things.
Thank you.
okay, great, thank you. Okay, moving on to item G, recommendations from Engineer Powell. Number one is 2019 tri-party fund projects.
Hello, Council.
Hi, Mike.
Thank you. For those of you that have forgotten and those of you that are new, the tri-party program is unique to Oakland County in that it is a coordination between three different governmental agencies: the Road Commission for Oakland County Government, and then the local communities. Oakland County and the Road Commission are given funds from the state periodically to divvy up amongst the communities, and this is a program for the various communities, and it's the cities, villages, and townships to enhance the roads within their community. And it gives them a little bit of a say. As you guys know, the Road Commission owns a great deal of the roads in Oakland County, and they have say over their own roads. Sometimes, however, a local community might want to have a little say over what's done in their community, and with some help from the county. Over the past years, many projects have been done with some help from the county, and that's some work at Benstein Road and Glengarry, some at South Commerce Road and Glengarry, down at Wolverine Drive and South Commerce Road. So we've taken advantage of these programs. In their recommendation to the village, they've listed a couple items. Let me back up. Every year, a little bit more is put into the pot, so that you might want to take on a bigger project occasionally, that you add, you accumulate the funds for a much bigger project. We have one that we've been eyeing, the village has, for a number of years, and that would be a left-hand turn lane at Shanken and South Commerce Road that might go to Wanda. That's a really very tough intersection there. The problem is that's about a $350,000, $400,000 improvement, and the only way that we can really accommodate that is if Walled Lake were to join with us and we combine our community development, our tri-party programs. Walled Lake has committed their funds for the improvements of Maple down through the city, and so they don't have any funds for a number of years now. But periodically, we have road programs that can and do comply with the requirements of the tri-party funds. Oakland County suggested several. One is improving the right turn lanes and passing lanes at Benstein Road and McCoy. Maybe putting a left-hand turn lane on South Commerce Road at Payne Court. Paving the shoulders on county roads within the village area. And my personal recommendation typically is to not necessarily spend funds that you have some preview over or some earmarking for roads that they're totally responsible for. You know, if they have a road that needs to be repaved and repaired, then they should probably do that themselves. So the intent here is for you to get a little bit of benefit in the village in the sharing of some of these costs. That's the intent of my letter to you dated February 7th. There are really 4 projects that I'd like the village to at least consider, and maybe we can discuss it. The first one was really initiated by Commerce Township, and that is the enhancement of the signalization at Benstein Road and Glengarry Road. As you know, during the rebuilding of the bridge on Wixom Road, they rerouted traffic and they had a left-hand turn from Glengarry Road left onto left onto Benstein Road. That seemed to work pretty well, and Commerce Township was pleased. Oakland County was pleased with it. Instead of leaving that temporary left-hand turn there, their concept is to put a left-hand turn signal all 4 directions so that they work in every direction and relieve some of the traffic back up due to the left-hand turns there. Oakland County's estimate is that would cost about $120,000 to redo that signal and allowing for that left-hand turn. They have earmarked $30,000 of the village's tri-party funds towards that project. So that seems to be a very legitimate improvement here in the village. Of that $30,000, the village's share would be 1/3, and 1/3 then to Oakland County and 1/3 to the Road Commission for Oakland County. That's kind of how that project is done. So there's a little more bang for our buck there, because really the overall tri-party is going to be only 1/4 of the overall cost for the village, from $120,000 down to $30,000, and then our share would be $10,000 of that. There is another project that DPW was concerned about. In this year's paving program, we are proposing to repave and rebuild Ladd Road north of McCoy. If you've been down in that area, that road's broken up a little bit, but even more important, the intersection there at McCoy and Ladd Road's even worse. It's worse than even our roads. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense for us to do our roadway and stop it just as the pavement gets worse down at that intersection. Unfortunately, that intersection is owned by Oakland County. So we could do it, we could spend all our funds to be able to repair that, but it's repairing their road then, and I don't think that's the best use of the village's taxes. However, they have agreed to allow us to roll that into the tri-party fund, and my estimate is that that intersection would cost about $9,000 to redo that intersection. So the village's share would only be $3,000 to include the paving all the way down McCoy, 50 feet, and south on Ladd a little bit further, and take that intersection into account as well. That's another option. There are two other roads in the village that, two other intersections that two others that are going to be part of the Oakland County roadway. I'm going to step over to the map and I'll yell loudly. Oh, here's a. No, you won't. No, I won't. Okay. So the intersection that we were just talking about is down here in Ladd, and this is the section of Ladd Road that we're looking to repave. This is the intersection I was just talking about, McCoy and Ladd Road. We have another roadway, Apple Orchard, that we're looking to resurface and to repair. We have an intersection here at Benstein Road that does in fact meet the requirements of doing improvements in the road right-of-way. The other one is over here in Indiana, and it meets the requirements as well. So while the village is stepping up and repairing the roads within the village, when we get out into the Oakland County Road right-of-way, yes, we have to get a permit to be able to improve that intersection out in the Oakland County roadways, but why not take advantage of the tri-party funds to pay for some of the work that we're already going to be doing as part of the paving program? So that makes some sense as well. The last project that I would recommend that we earmark some funds for is the Benstein Road pathway. Remember, we have a pathway proposed from Clara Miller Park up to the Dairy Twist, Dairy Bean, whatever it's called. And that is in the Oakland County Road right-of-way of Benstein Road. That also does comply and meet the requirements of the tri-party funds. And we're looking to tie that into the paving program this spring when we're bidding this project out. As a little sidelight, we're looking to bring those bids to you next month, and therefore we're hoping to be able to roll all these projects together. But as far as for paying for these are ideas that I'd like to have the village identify and then just give direction to staff and myself, probably in a motion, so that we can represent those to the county and have those officially adopted by the county as a tri-party programs.
Mike?
Yes, sir.
Besides these that you have just indicated, is there other major paving? Because we did the parking lot, and then last year, we were going to hold off on the island and the pathway, and that's when I made the motion just to do the island, get that done. So if we did this and the pathway, are we pretty much up to snuff, or do we still got a lot to do?
Well, if you recall, you're actually bringing us back to the size of our paving program this year. If you recall, last fall, we bid out the 2018 paving program.
Right.
And because of the cost of petroleum and the busyness of all the contractors, the paving prices virtually doubled. It was double what our estimated budget was for the paving program. So we decided to hold those and put them together with this year's program. So we have a 2018, 2019 is going to be a joint program, which should, because of the size and the lack of busyness bidding this time of the year, we're hoping that the contractors can bid it, and this can be their first job this year. We can get those prices down where they belong. What Ed was alluding to, we pulled the Oak Island project out and did it as an independent project and rebid it as a smaller project, so smaller contractors could do it, and we ended up getting some fairly decent savings by doing that.
So I guess my point is, what I'm trying to understand is, if we put in for all these tri-parties, which makes sense, You know, we're putting in 30 and somebody else is putting in 60. It sounds like it's a good deal.
Right.
Are we going, and then you're talking about Apple Orchard Lane needs to be done. Was that something you're thinking about this year?
That is, and it's a great point. I've only recommended those intersections that we were already going to be doing as part of this year's paving
I
program.
understand that.
Yes, so that is an excellent point, yes.
Okay, and then will we be pretty much caught up?
We will be caught up for what the village council has adopted as the 5-year paving program.
Okay.
So if we do that, then we'll be set for
Yeah, I
2020
didn't want
after
to get in
this.
all this other stuff and say, oh, we are supposed to do this road and we can't do it, and, you know, so if we're being caught up, it sounds like that's a
Yes.
good approach, and at least it can't hurt. I don't know if we have more discussion, but I think I wouldn't hesitate to make a motion after we discuss it.
So this actually is going to be additive to what our plans were in 2019 anyway.
Well, keep in mind that the intersections for the paving that we were going to do on village roads, I was going to improve the intersections
Right.
anyway.
Right,
The only one that I'm really adding is the intersection at McCoy and Ladd,
Right.
and then suggesting that we add the pathway. Why not have the county help us pay for that pathway as well on Benstein Road?
Mike, do the unused funds carry forward? I
They
see
do.
They do, okay.
Yes.
And so if there's more additional funds next year, we can add to the carryover to that?
That is correct.
I would like to make a motion that we instruct our village engineer to proceed with the information he has passed on to us today and do the best shopping and the best he can do for us for the upcoming paving season.
I'll second that.
Motion by second by Duff. Any discussion?
Now, that would be the Benstein Glengarry, the McCoy Lad, and then the
Indiana Apple Orchard
Indiana Apple Orchard, correct?
and the path.
And the pathway.
And pathway. Okay.
I guess the
Correct.
question would be, when, we're looking at doing this work before, or in this fiscal year, right?
That is
So it would be done before July 1?
It's a little more complicated than that, and Administrator and I and Treasurer
We have
and
a
I
magician.
have been coordinating that, and Mike
We'll
can
get our
kind of
magician
bring
here.
that along a little bit. So if we could work it out perfectly, like we did a couple of years ago, to where we did 2018 in June and 2019 in July, then we've met the precise idea of the budget. However, that may cause a complication and increase our prices. They might want to do the whole thing in May or June, and if that's the case, council will just have to bring forward the monies that would be in the 2019 budget, and bring it back into 2018, so that we can save some money on the paving.
Any problem with that, Mike?
Mr. President, yeah, it looks like these are, the total cost is going to be $24,700 out of pocket for us. My question to you first, though, Mike, is, number one was not going to take place until the very end of the calendar year, I thought, the Benstein Glengarry signal improvement. Was it-
And that is correct, thank you. You
Okay.
are absolutely correct.
So that's next year regardless. That's after July
Next
1st,
fiscal year.
guaranteed.
It's next fiscal year for the village, however, it's this fiscal year for the road commission. So they're looking for us to give their recommendation for the tri-party funds now,
Which is fine, but when are
Yes.
we out the money, when they do the project?
when they do the project.
So that's 10 grand in next year's budget.
Correct.
The remainder, but the next three things are sort of, this is where I'm going with this. It's not that they're conjectural, but you don't have official approval from OCRC or the tri-party fund administrator that these are a go.
Nothing in writing. They ask us to propose it, and then they write a letter of acceptance. But I have been in touch with them, and in concept, they're total agreements with
Okay.
those three.
Okay.
That is correct.
Mike, just
So no, it's not an issue with budgeting.
Okay, great.
a question that's outside of the scope of our road repaving and repair program. Where are we relative to the park, that's Clara Miller Park, and the paving that needs to be done, I guess that's a way to state it. Is that anywhere within the visual of any of these funds that you have put aside? I think you were talking 180,000 or something.
It certainly was when we were looking at including that and upgrading the paving within Clara Miller. I have not included that as part of the paving program now at all, since council kind of pulled back on the improvements in Clara Miller. That doesn't mean, however, that we couldn't include that in this paving program. So council knows, not only do we get an overall budget number by bidding this out, but we take unit price numbers in case there's less work to do or more work to do. So the low bidder, we could easily negotiate and add whatever paving the council might want to do in Clara Miller Park as part of this program.
Now, would these tri-party funds be usable for an ingress and egress lane if needed there?
It would not.
It would.
As part of the paving program a couple of years ago, we redid the entrance at Clara Miller Park. So that entrance has already been redone. So you're talking about all the paving inside Clara Miller Park, so there would be no improvement in a road commission right-of-way.
Okay.
If I could, Mr. Scott, this pretty much takes our allotment down to
Yeah.
zero.
Yeah.
And future accumulations, this 74 that we have in the pot, so to speak, is
Right.
accumulated over, I don't know, 10-year period.
Right.
I can't remember the last time we tapped in it, so it'll be a long time before we reestablish the position that we're in now.
That's why I asked the question. I was trying to figure out what the timelines were.
Right.
Okay. any
Good,
discussion?
good work.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Pedro.
Yes.
Clement.
Yes.
Duff.
Yes.
Malik.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
York.
Yes.
Sinkowitz.
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Mike. And then we've got item 2, which is Wakito, which Mr. Malik wanted to have on here.
We discussed in the past about possibly vacating two sections of Wakedo because there's no homes or anything, or nobody needs access to their property, and turning it into parkland. But I have a question, and I don't know what the thought would be. It's 60 foot of right-of-way, correct?
Correct.
And then to the north of that, there's parkland, north of this existing road.
In areas,
And
yes.
to the south, is there a chance we can offer that property up for sale? That, it would possibly be somebody to buy it and build 2 homes? We don't need more grass cutting area for the DPW. And that park area isn't utilized at this point. So, I mean, it's just a thought I'm throwing out there. It would, and Mike, tell me if I'm wrong, that's a couple of prime pieces of property that could be sold and benefit the village if it can be done. I don't know.
Is that a title issue?
Isn't parkland, Jennifer?
Yeah,
if I'm not
parkland, you
mistaken,
can't do anything with. It's parkland.
Unless you vote,
Yeah.
a vote of
Yeah,
the people,
votes
I
are
think,
extra.
unless village law is different.
I sitting here in real time trying to look through your charter and see what special provisions you had for that, but there are state regulations requiring an election for sale of parkland under certain circumstances, and I don't know if this qualifies, but the road portion of what you're talking about has to be vacated in a certain way, meaning it's divided and it
Half and half.
falls to the property, so that wouldn't be part of what you would be able to sell.
Okay,
That
well, I
has to
don't know. I mean, if
fall
it's vacated, it's not a useful road in any way.
Yeah, so the vacated property, whatever properties are on both sides of that road, those properties would take that road. It would become part of their parcels. And I don't know who's on the sides of the roads there, but,
There's only a couple of houses on the,
For
Is-
the most part, it's park.
yeah, most of it's parkland.
Is-
If I can, talk about selling that property, I believe when that property was donated, there might have been a contingency placed on that not to be sold.
there could be a deed restriction in place too. I mean, I don't
Well,
know.
I guess my question is it worth us looking into and finding out?
I mean,
Again, the roadway is census for us to have to maintain, those 2 sections. Okay, so if we plow it up and put down grass, the DPW, they don't need more work. And that's what it amounts to, more grass cutting or whatever. I'm just looking at it realistically in my eyes, all right? My eye, I should say.
Yeah,
But.
verify.
It's just, I'm asking a question if it makes sense.
I mean, I
That's all.
can give you the basics of what would need to happen with the road and where it would go and if it could be sold and if that park could be sold and, is it worth your time really?
Is it actually a deeded road?
Yes, it is a deeded road. And actually, for the most part, they'll just park on both sides of that. It's just a very small section on one side, so even if it has to be vacated, the property would still go to the village because that property on both sides.
The parkland.
With the exception of, I
The
believe,
one house.
100 feet at that corner house.
You know, I don't know how much property is there from the 60-foot going north, okay? So let's say from the southern part of the road and just a piece of parkway going north would create a buildable lot, technically. Just look into that instead of dipping into the southern part.
It's gonna depend on a couple things, what the deed says and
Mhm.
if the property's state law restricted in some way, so.
Well, I guess my question to council is that something we'd like to pursue or not?
Are you pushing a motion for us to
Well,
authorize deeper review?
to find out. I mean, otherwise, we're gonna dig it up and, you know, if
Make a
that.
motion.
Yeah.
Okay, I make a motion that we have the attorney look into the vacating of the two, I don't know between what streets they are.
Between Terry and
Woodlawn.
Brisbane, quite frankly,
Is it?
that whole section there.
What is
No,
it?
no, the first two you can't because the homes have to have access.
Well, keep in mind that my recommendation is, if you're going to make a motion like that, we ought to investigate the entire length of Wakedo, because you might be able to vacate the whole thing and just extend a home's driveway out to Brisbane instead
what we've been
of
talking about
maintaining
for
that
years.
roadway the whole way. So that would leave the option open to bring back to council for any number of things that council then could pursue.
That's your motion, right?
Well, no, because, first of all, the house between, was it Woodlawn and Roselawn? Their garage enters off of Wakedo. Okay, the house on Brisbane and Wakedo, they've got a dual access point. Okay, they've got a side on Brisbane, and then also one on Wakedo. The problem being the one between Woodlawn and, you know, how they're gonna direct the driveway, you know, when they have a nice off-the-road and in.
Well, a lot of people have side entry garages, so you'd end up with allowing them to have a side entry garage coming in off of whatever street they come in at. So it would just give options. It doesn't mean that they would even want to do that, because you have
Right.
to get their permission and their agreement to do it.
And we don't know if we're gonna be able to do it.
Right.
Right, and that'd be something else that may come up, is what encroachments do you have on that roadway and in that park as well, that would need to be addressed. So that could be possible.
Well,
I don't know.
I guess whether we sell it or we vacate it, we still probably have to do
Yeah.
due diligence to look at vacating it
I don't
anyways,
think-
right?
Right.
So I guess my motion would be to have the attorney look into what the possibilities are for us to either vacate or
Repurpose.
or resurface or not, you know, whatever it takes.
Okay.
I mean, it's
For the options. huh?
the options, yes.
You have a second?
I'll second it. I think I understand the motion. I'll second it.
Right, well, don't ask her to read that.
Yeah, I'll read that back.
I think I understand.
Do you understand
Yeah, I
it?
do.
She'll be
Any other
doing the
discussion?
digging, so.
Okay, I guess we need a roll call vote on that one.
Dumont,
Yes.
Duff.
Yes.
Malik.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
York.
Yes.
Pinkwitz.
Yes.
Vendro.
Yes.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
council.
Can I
Thank you,
ask
Michael.
one question before, and I guess
Absolutely.
it's a general question, since we have the chair of the Park and Recs here, and we at this dais has talked about goal planning and what needs to be done and bringing in the boards. The budgeted amount, or whatever might be the amount necessary, and I know we don't have it, Mike, I hear that cleanly, to do certain improvements to the park, including the road, I would think is gonna be part of this goal planning session. I think when we look at our last meetings, we talked about, we have a plan, we need to get on to doing something with that plan. So, Mike, just with your magic, as was used by our president, or no, I think it was you, Ed, that says he has magic. When do you think there would be a refill of, was it 5 years, 10 years to get together that 180,000, if that's what's needed? And would that kind of improvement be part of anything we could apply? That is the parking lot. anything we could apply for grant money to be used on if our plan is put together sequentially?
I think grants are a possibility for a
Okay.
number of things in the park, so depending on how we prioritize, I mean, yeah, in
It
general.
could be that, okay. So grant money could be used for paving, all right. Just
Okay,
wanted
thank you,
the
Mike.
chair to hear that.
Thank you, Michael.
Okay, next, item H, which is tiki candle purchases for 2019. And we had a letter from Kaznecki regarding that. I know there was some issues with the candles last year.
Yeah, as you know, Pam Kaznecki has carried the water on this tiki candle thing for a couple of years now, succeeding Joanne Sullivan. And one of the things that we've discovered over the last couple of years, by the way, she couldn't be here tonight, she's on vacation, so. One of the things we've discovered over the last couple of years is that some of the candles may not be burning correctly, or they may be defective in some regard. The people at English Gardens, which is basically our only source for these, that's the only thing that Joanne and Pam have ever found, have said that, hey, we haven't heard from anybody else as far as complaints. Brian and I were talking, maybe some of the complaints have to do with wind or something else, but anyway, this year we've got a credit for 700 and some candles, and so this year's outlay is much smaller than the norm. So what we're thinking is that, and the candles are stored in a non-climate controlled area of the DPW garage. They're on a skid, they're above the floor, they're not getting wet. So I don't think there's any issue related to storage. But in the face of what English Gardens has agreed to do, we're going to sell some of the candles at a discounted price. Some may be complete duds, some may burn well, I don't know, but, so we'll have like the sure thing candles and the marginal ones for sale this year. So it's a nice gesture by English Gardens, I think,
Yeah.
to give us the credit for a pretty substantial dump.
One thing if it's real windy, you're kind of in a bad spot, but having them straight up is better than having them on an angle. Because as the wax melt, it drips off the side, goes down, and it doesn't burn like the wick where, just like a candle in your house, they're not burning like this, they're burning like this, so.
I know last year I had half a dozen or 8 of them in the front yard, and we were on the west end, north side of the lake, and the wind was coming right down the lake. I had a heck of a time trying to keep them going.
Yeah, keep relighting them.
Yeah, but it worked.
So that was nice of them.
Because of the effect anyways, right? That's what we wanted.
That's
out of
it.
them, So, other than that,
There's a motion there for you.
so, who made the motion?
Nobody's made
We
it.
need
It's
a
at the
motion.
bottom of
That's right.
the letter in item H.
So we're gonna look at purchasing 720 candles from English.
I'll make that
Gardens.
Yes, sir.
Motion by Sinkwitz, second
I'll second
by Mr. York. So for a total of $1,323.25, and basically this is it's a zero value thing for the village anyways. I mean, generally we take in.
Exactly right, offset by the
It's
revenues,
offset
the charges.
by the purchases, so. So any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Duff.
Yes.
Mallett.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
York.
Yes.
Sinkwitz.
Yes.
Nedrow.
Yes.
Yes.
Great, thank you, council. Item I is sign a delegate for the, and alternate positions for SEMCOG. So, Mike?
We, as you know, participate. We send SEMCOG dues to the tune of $800 and some per year. And I was approached a short while ago with we have a vacancy. We have 2 representatives, a delegate and an alternate. A delegate has to be an elected official. That was John McGee. I don't know how much he participated over the years. I don't know if he went to there's 3 meetings that they ask you to participate in. Those are usually held at their downtown headquarters. So we're looking to replace him, has to be an elected official. Mr. Dumont is currently our alternate. An alternate can be an elected or an appointed official. So it's just out there for discussion, if depending on who wants to volunteer for what. I have to let them know. I can tell you that from my perspective, they're a very useful resource as far as being a database. You can look at population trends, you can look at census data of all kinds that they have on their website for not only us, but surrounding communities. They'll give you position papers. on various and sundry subjects. They just came out with a 245-page transportation study for the area. That's very interesting reading. And again, a good organization. It's great that we're a part of it. And I think what they're trying to do is make sure that we're active participants. So if somebody's interested in serving in those roles, if Dave wants to continue, for example, and a new elected official wants to pop in, that's what we're looking for tonight.
Anybody interested? Dave, are you interested in alternate yet, or?
Sure, yeah, I've been alternate for a few years.
Okay. And I guess I don't have a problem stepping up as our delegate, so.
Yeah, no problem.
So I guess we probably need a motion to appoint the delegate and alternate, so.
I make a motion to appoint Mr. Nedrow as the delegate and Mr. Dumont as the alternate for the SEMCOG.
Okay, motion by Malik, second by Duff. Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Now we have a discussion on WADA.
They call themselves WODA, not to correct you there, Mr. President, but this is a proposed transportation authority that would serve residents of Waterford and White Lake and the Milfords and us and Commerce. And it's very much in the beginning stages. They're looking to emulate NOTA, which is a North Oakland County Transportation Authority, which exists in Addison Township and Oxford Township and Orion Township. It's been wildly successful in terms of ridership and so forth. And we do have a sort of minimal program here. Jennifer briefed us on the general idea behind it at our January meeting. I've gone to a meeting of prospective members that was held in Highland here a week or so ago. We're basically, I think, going to have to be partnered with Commerce. And I had the resolution on the agenda here for the sole purpose of indicating to the lady who's kind of spearheading this thing from Highland Township, sorry to get so detailed here, that in applying for grants, the more the merrier as far as backing, that sort of thing. If Commerce is not going to participate, which I did not know until today based on their meeting yesterday, they have an item that they've tabled. My sense of the thing is that they're really not that interested at this point in time, based on the ridership statistics, based on what they're expected to pony up over the years. In this NOTA situation, for example, there's a dedicated millage that's levied in those 3 townships. There's an additional contribution from those 3 townships. Commerce's feeling, I think, in general, is that they want to step back. They want to look at this. Mr. Scott wants to do some surveys, wants to see whether or not the demand is really there. A lot of this is based on conjecture, and that it's almost like that old adage, if we build it, they will come.
I think you mentioned also that Milford
The Milfords are out.
backed out.
They have an alternative
Plan.
source of this that they're going to explore. We're going to talk that over, Mr. Scott and I, here in the very near future. But just bear in mind, I mean, we are an aging population. This is geared toward people who are over 55. It's not means tested. They make a small contribution in the fare box. It doesn't come close to covering the cost of operating the program. But it may very well be that the NOTA model will be somehow, maybe it is applicable here. So in terms of the motion that you have there, I think we'll just, if it's all right with you, just simply ignore it. But again, I had it there on the basis of, if Commerce was going to jump on it yesterday, I was going to ask that we kind of do the same thing.
I think it's probably prudent, since they tabled it, to try to find out where they're going first, and
I agree, Mr.
if
President.
anything else. I mean, there was a substantial contribution, and we were looking at.
Oh, yeah.
that You mentioned, was
Yeah,
up to
it's
$16,000,
16,000,
14 or 16
And then I
grand.
think it went up to 21,000 by 2020. And the way that WODA is proposing to be structured is that in the future, other communities can join. So if it isn't, if it isn't your preference to do that right now, then there would likely be an opportunity for your participation at a later date. And that may be prudent to see how things are gonna run. And what the actual cost may be. As Mike was saying, it's a lot of conjecture here, and there's a lot of speculation as to what is, ridership is going to be and what is needed in the communities, so.
And so many things about the future, too. I mean, what about Lyft? What about Uber? What about the fact that there'll be autonomous vehicles? And who knows when? But, so the future for transportation is very exciting in some ways, but also murky. And as Jennifer quite correctly points out, I mean, we can jump on later if it proves to be a success, if we have the demand for it here. Our numbers seem to be very paltry, at least based on my experience, but someone who's using the service is going to be very vocal, very much in favor of it, and, you know, maybe we'll expect to hear from somebody if we're kind of opting out of the program.
According to her.
So I guess the point is no action, I think.
Yeah, I think that's probably the way to go.
That's a different.
Right.
Everybody feel that no action's probably the way to go tonight, then?
Yes.
Okay.
Agreed.
We'll move on. Second call to the public, an hour and 4 minutes early, so anybody in the public want to have anything to say for the second call? Seeing none, well, I guess we'll bypass that one. Item L, recommendations from Police Chief Ellsworth.
Just a request to have graphics installed on the 2018 Tahoe and remove. This is just a recommendation to have the graphics installed on the 2018 Chevy Tahoe and removed from the 2014 Tahoe. It's not to exceed $1,300. It is from budgeted funds. We talked about this last year. What we're doing is we're putting 2018 in service for all the guys to use, and I'll be taking the 2014 out of service for the daily use. It's got 126,000 miles on it, I think, and I'm going to drive that until we get the 2019. So, and I'm still busting my head over that, trying to figure out what we're going to do, because Chevy is no longer making the Impala, and I wanted to buy a car. Checking all the mileage on the vehicles, I think we might end up getting a Tahoe again. It's just been a stand-up vehicle for us, so.
I'd like to make the motion that we spend the $1,300 to redo the graphics,
Budgeted funds.
or install the graphics.
Second.
Okay, motion by Duff, second by Mr. York. Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion
Need a roll
carries.
call for that?
Yeah, oh, yeah, roll call.
I'm sorry.
Ayla?
I'm sorry.
Roll call? Yeah.
Roll call.
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
York?
Yes.
Woods?
Yes.
Pedro?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Yeah.
Chief, have you, just out of curiosity, looked at the Equinox?
The Chevy Equinox?
Yeah.
A smaller car.
It's got, you know,
Police package on it?
pardon me?
No, I haven't, because
Small.
the Michigan State Police test a certain amount of vehicles. Now, they just recently started testing the Equinox, and the Sheriff's Department just bought 80 Equinox. And I was kind of waiting to see how they turn out.
That's why I asked you.
I'm not going to, I don't want to be the guinea pig. We're too small to do that. They can buy 80 of them, and if 70 of them break, they're still okay. If one of them breaks here, we're in deep trouble. I want to wait till, I don't like to buy the first model of anything. I have looked at it, but they're not going to be that much cheaper than the Tahoes.
The price means something, but that vehicle's been around for a while. It's been around for 6 years now.
Yep.
And, you know, the seat goes down, you got plenty of room in the back, and that's
Same
what
thing
I
with the-
drive,
Same
you
thing with the
know.
Explorer. I mean, Explorers, you see a lot of those on, Michigan State Police got a lot of those.
Yeah, there's special unit vehicles for the Explorers.
They're coming out with.
Or,
police
I'm sorry, the
package on.
Expeditions is what I was thinking. The Explorers, yes, you're correct. They actually split half between Chevy and half between the Explorers. The problem that I seem to have with the Explorers are built on the Ford Taurus frame. So they're not a truck, they are truly a car with basically a SUV body on it.
Lighter duty.
Where the Tahoes seem to be much more rugged. And yeah, it rides a little more rugged, but I don't have to worry about
Got good streets.
Yeah, suspension and steering.
all that stuff that comes along with that. So, but we've had some pretty good luck. Now, the one with 120-some thousand miles, I'm starting to get some leaks and things like that we have to keep up with, and that can start to get expensive, but I still would like to keep that vehicle around for our ordinance officer when we do take that out of service.
I have a question. You said you were contemplating the General Motors product that they discontinued.
Yeah.
Okay, and you made mention of the Explorer on a Taurus frame. How about the price difference if you were gonna get a car-type vehicle in the first place? You know, the Explorer versus the Tahoe, the savings might be worth it because you were considering another car.
Yep, I was considering the car. The problem with, and again, it goes back to kind of semantics, the room isn't there. If you're gonna buy an SUV that's gonna get the same gas mileage and that kind of stuff as a SUV, you're not gonna have the near the amount of room that you do with the Tahoe. What we're coming across right now is, what I like to do is I like to keep 2 Tahoes and a car in constant rotation. What I looked at were the mileage and which vehicle am I going to need to replace next year. And it's not the 2016 Charger, it's going to be the 2016 Tahoe that we bought in 2015,
Right.
basically. So I'm going to have to replace the Tahoe next year. But what I do is I buy that almost a year in advance. And so like the 2018 that we've had for a year, that we use for a court car and getting around, that has 5,600 miles on it right now. So that's going into service for the guys, and we'll take the old one with 120,000 miles out. Next year, I expect the 2016 Tahoe to have pretty close to a little over 100,000 miles on it. It's already got 70-some thousand miles on it, so that'll have 100,000 miles on it. That one will be the next one to be taken out of rotation. What I like to do is use the same equipment from that vehicle, from the Tahoe, to go into the new Tahoe. If I took the equipment out of the current Tahoe that we're taking down, it wouldn't fit in a car, so I'd have to buy new equipment anyway. And that's why I thought, well, if we do that,
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm just trying to,
Utilize what we have.
I'm trying to utilize what we have, but at the same time, do it smartly. When we went with the Chargers, obviously, 2010, 2011, those were horrible years for those Chargers, and they'll tell you that. In 2016, I gave them another chance. Well, first 3,000 miles, I had one major incident, but since that time, it's been a pretty good vehicle. So, am I going to go back to that? Well, we're not going to have a whole lot of choice, other than you're going to go to a Ford Taurus, or you're going to go to a Charger, because they're the only ones left in the business.
Right.
So I'd rather stick with what I know, and if we have the Charger here, if I buy a new Charger, I could take the equipment out of this Charger and put it into that one. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to save money overall, but at the same time, be smart about it.
Yeah, I'm only was questioning it because you were talking about an automobile, and then you make the statement that the Explorer's on a car frame.
Yeah.
That's why, and I looked at it for the Tahoe price and the Explorer price. That's the only reason I question it.
Also, when you put an SUV on a car frame, it's not going to ride the same, and it doesn't handle the same as a SUV, a heavy-duty truck. It's going to handle as a heavy-duty truck.
Especially around the
Special
corners.
that. But with a car, it sits lower, and it does handle different. They tried to make it a mid-frame, I guess. The Ford Taurus, and I know there's some car guys in here that can explain it better than me, they actually raised the frame up a little bit on that car, the Ford Taurus, so it didn't sit so low, so when they put the SUV body on it, it didn't seem as low. So they've made some adjustments, and they are getting better, and eventually, we're not going to have to worry about it, because they're going to tell us what we have to drive.
Sure.
But as it stands, I'm leaning now, because of the mileage, et cetera, and what we're going to replace next year, I'm leaning now more towards the Tahoe. And I hate to do that because I know it's a big bite in the expense to purchase up front. I just think overall it's going to be worth it in the long run.
Okay, that's fine. You are the people that drive them, so.
Okay. Moving on to set topic for February 27th work session. I don't really think we have anything
No.
on there, so.
Well, I have some items, okay? I'd like, for the work session,
Are we going to have a work session?
well, I want to have one.
What's your items?
Well, there's a couple things. DPW leader I'd like to discuss. I'd also like to discuss blight in the community. We have ordinances, and I could give you three right off the top, but I won't because I think unless we get into it, okay? But there's, cars parked all over front lawns and trees cut down and piled up for 6 months in a front lawn, and just things that we have ordinances on the books. I read the blight ordinances, okay? And I read them again. And, you know, just because a vehicle's plated, it says it's supposed to be operable, okay? We've got a boat sitting in an area that's been sitting for 10 years, that, you know, it's standing up in the air like this. I mean, that's all blight. This is our community. This is what we're paying our taxes for. I think we need to address those problems.
Is that an enforcement issue or a discussion issue?
Well, I think it's an
No, it's
enforcement issue, but we need to discuss how far we want to have our enforcement officer go about these things. You know, we've put it off. There's a house down one street that's got a business, and he's got a trailer, he's got a boat, he's got 2 vans, he's got 3 cars. You know, I mean, he's got a parking lot. Okay, this is a residential area. You know, all you people live on the lake. If something was happening on the lakefront around you, you'd stand up and hoot and holler. Well, I'm a backlot owner, and I see it around me, and I don't think it's right. It's the whole community that needs to be serviced properly.
So do we need to change the ordinance?
No, we need to discuss it, how we want to go about enforcing it.
So from a legal perspective, the way that your ordinances are written is the way that they should be enforced.
Right.
If you should have a discussion if you feel that your ordinance is deficient in some way, but if it's an enforcement issue, that would be administrative addressing enforcement, you have an ordinance. This is what needs to be enforced. It's not, are we gonna enforce it, or should
Yeah.
we be lenient or not? This is your ordinance.
I agree.
So it's really just if you think
I
your
think-
ordinance is
yeah.
deficient.
I think this is something we should wait till our new administrator's here.
Yeah,
I would think so,
Chief,
yeah.
you wanted to mention anything?
Yeah, first off, we have a new ordinance officer, and he's been off for a significant amount of time recently in the last couple of months for a medical issue. He's back now, getting back into the swing of things. I think if you would drop him a line and talk to him, explain to him what you guys want, whether it be the administrator or whether it be the administrative committee or something along that line, to tell him. There's a lot of communication that can go on. If you see something that you don't like, you don't have to be frustrated about it. Call us and tell us. We'll address it, and maybe he'll address it. But there are certain things that, if you drive around here as many times as we do, we don't necessarily see everything.
I understand,
So if you
John.
do see something that you want addressed, let us know. Even I can address some of these things, especially vehicles with expired plates or vehicles that are in disrepair. There are certain things that if you want the ordinance officer to address, I can address it with the ordinance officer, or you can address it directly with him.
Well, but this goes back to when we decided to go with an ordinance officer. It was to relieve the burden from the police department so they could do police work, not, you
You're right,
know.
and we don't want to get back into the ordinance
Right,
business. believe
and
me.
I don't want you to.
But at the same time, if you think there's an issue, I can address it with the ordinance officer and say, this is what we would like to see done. Because Bill is looking for, our ordinance officer is looking for some instruction on how to, and he's just barely getting his feet wet, then he was off for a couple months, now he's getting back into it. We can definitely sit down and have a conversation about that.
One of the things, and I'll point it out, I talked to Bill about in the summer, it's in my subdivision. Hasn't changed a bit, okay? And I won't bring it up as to what, if you and I can talk about it. And you
Absolutely.
can address him later,
Yep.
okay?
And there are
it's-
certain things that I've seen that he doesn't stress nearly as much as Jeff, our former ordinance officer, did. But there are certain things that he sees that Jeff never saw.
Sure.
So it's going to be a little give and take, a little learning curve, and I have no problem talking these things out and explaining, for example, what we would like to see a little more of, or, not necessarily the behind the scenes as much as the more obvious violations we can definitely address.
Fine, that's, then I'll go that route.
Yeah, come on down and see me. I'll be more than happy to sit and talk with you about it.
Well, you know we're talking, that's not a problem.
That makes more sense of putting on a work session, I think.
All right, so
I agree.
What was the other thing you were talking about prior to that?
I mentioned about a DPW leader we need to
That
address.
sounds administrative.
And then,
That's administrative.
another thing, the code enforcement officer, like when Jeff worked on Mondays and Fridays or whatever the case, I don't remember the days, or is it the new
Our
code
new
enforcement
ordinance
officer works
officer's
those
working on Monday
days?
and Friday, right?
I'd like to see that, if his schedule warrants, after 3 months, instead of Mondays and Fridays, he works Tuesdays and Thursdays, or he works Mondays and Wednesdays. People get in a pattern of knowing when they can do things,
I
okay?
think his schedule was set because he
Yeah.
works for another
He
municipality.
works
Well, I don't know, that's what I'm saying, it's
It's shared,
something we
for
can look
sure.
into and
Yeah.
find out.
He works for Milford Township, and
Yeah.
so I believe he's there on Tuesdays and Thursdays, maybe Wednesdays as well.
Well, again, I just think if we keep in a monotonous formula, that people know that, that's all. And, you know, we've always, and you're on zoning, you know you got stuff coming up, people show up, well, I didn't know I needed a permit. Well, we all know better than that. So his enforcement is important.
Agreed.
Agreed.
I'll throw one last topic. I've already mentioned this topic. I'm just looking for a feeling again from council, and that's the topic of goal planning. I know when we talked about that at the special session, there seemed to be a split feeling that we should wait for the new administrator. And I think my side, and I might be the only one that made that statement, is that the administrator reports to council, and we're into March. Before he's here, we might not have that goal list set up until April, May, which I guess is fine if we're gonna shift the period of review. But it would seem to me that, at least in my world, following a path is easier than creating a path you've never been down. So I was wondering if that still is something, and I know nobody wants to get together. I'm in the crowd to have a special work session. And I'm just wondering if there's another way to do that. I've put down the conversations I've had with the boards that I'm involved with. We've got some identified items. Should we just share a list among each other? Or should we just, I guess I'm looking for a time frame. Does the council prefer to wait till, let's say, a work session in April?
Well, I was thinking,
To have
actually, I was
that
thinking
initial-
March. March would be a good goal-setting session with the
Yeah, I
new
know that
administrator will
coming
be-
on.
Mike had some feelings on this too.
Yeah, Mr. President, I met with Mike today, mostly housekeeping chores. He's very anxious to be part of any goal-setting session, wants to elucidate or enunciate, I should say, some goals of his own, and, you know, really is enthused about the process. He'll be on board March 11th. His first meeting will be the 13th. I'm sure he'll be ready to roll for a work session at the end of the month.
All right.
That's what I was kind of shooting for, was to have a March goal-setting session.
All right, so I make a motion that we set aside the February 27th work session.
Second.
Motion by Dove, second by Melick. Cancel the February 27th work session. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Okay, Bob, item on Parks Rec minutes.
I'm sorry, the what?
Parks and Rec.
Oh,
minutes.
yes. If you go to the Parks and Recs minutes under working business, Giromini, I believe it's pronounced. If I'm wrong, I apologize.
The audience.
Right there.
Oh, I'm sorry. And he stated that the memorial has taken a different turn. They will work with Commerce, and it will now be in a different location.
I can comment on that.
So can I, was at the meeting, but go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, is that at that point, that was the information we had, or I had. Since then, it's taken another.
You might want to get up and that way people that are watching on TV can hear you. I'm
Since that
sorry.
meeting, things have changed a little bit in terms of information and clarity. Commerce in that area, Wixom, Walled Lake are building a memorial. We're also going to build one, much more to scale that is befitting of our area. Rather than before, things kind of were getting out of hand in terms of projection and goals, and, you know, you're talking mid-high six figures, which is probably not realistic. Now we're in a more realistic goal and restructuring within the Vets Committee to create something within the master plan that will fit effectively within Claremont Park.
So you're still contemplating something here in Claremont?
Yes.
So it's back, essentially it's back to where we originally started.
Yeah.
We originally started.
Yes.
I'm a liaison to that board, if you don't mind, I can add a little bit. I was at that meeting. It seems as that board has celebrated, or ad hoc committee has celebrated a little over 2 years of trying to get moving down some track. And I would say within the first 30 to 40 minutes, without overstating it, the contention became, and tension became very obvious that Shane, who really brought this to the game, as well as Debbie, still had some other directions they were going to go in. So there was a motion made that basically said that, and remember again, and I think I said this off record before the meeting, that all of the members of the Memorial Committee, including Mark's involvement, are in fact village residents. So what the motion basically said is it was releasing, in a sense, not the membership at this point in time for their obligations, but releasing Shane and the direction that his partner were going with Simona Stone. We have met with Commerce. Part of what my direction was given by that committee was to go out and dig deeper. So I've talked to the state of Michigan and other parties. And basically there is a function that starts at the federal level to do the pathways throughout the United States. There's been $27 million spent in in Michigan alone. And so where we are is David Scott is the president of the committee that is involved with Walled Lake Wixom and Commerce to rehab the train station. And so they're not going to rehab the train station, it's coming down. So that's going to leave an open area. And exactly as was said, there's a second meeting coming up. This is the third rendition by Shane's group of a well-done memorial, which, as was just said, it's something in excess of $600,000 plus dollars. So the committee will be splitting into two functions, but still as a committee together. And the function is to look to be a $50,000 to $70,000 memorial within our park. And there's a design team that, is that fair to say? That's going to be put together
It's been put together to
get this focus
create more
done.
focus, more
Yeah.
direction, and
This was
have it on
this
board.
gentleman's ideas to get
Well,
this
again,
done.
I appreciate that, but, I'm going by, what it
Well,
says.
that was that.
And that's
that
why I
statement
questioned
was
it.
pre that meeting.
Yeah, it was
actually.
pre this
okay.
meeting,
So that was,
yes.
my information was based on the meeting they had at the beginning of January.
Sure.
And at that point, it did sound like things were going in a complete and total different direction.
And that's
John hadn't been
absolutely
at the meetings yet either. I was out of town at that time too. So this was just operating on that. And
Well, you see why I
communicating
questioned it.
Oh,
That's the only
absolutely. I
reason.
mean, it was one of those things where there was definitely issues with
So,
information.
because a lot of
and
people,
clarity.
yourself included, have stepped up here and got involved and
Their
trying to
minute-
make something
minutes should have
happen,
been
and then
in
I
here,
see
but
this.
I guess they didn't
No, I never
provide.
saw
Some of us were on this committee at its onset. So are you telling me that the committee now has pretty much poo-pooed the idea of putting something in the park here?
No, we're going to.
Exactly
That's
the
the intention
opposite.
is to
Okay.
do that.
And it's
That is why
not-
we're going to have a committee within
Okay.
to do that.
Well,
to make sure it actually
Is
gets
it good,
done.
what I'm trying to find out, is it going to be some huge
We're not going to have
structure
we're not
or
going to have
something very
stone
simple?
soldiers and that are 25 grand a pop. We're going to have something more in line of having the flags of the branches, of POWs, having bricks through Bricks R Us so that people can honor those they want to honor or acknowledge their service, and have some benches, something much more in line with our community size. Also something
Yeah.
that would be useful if somebody wants to celebrate something on Memorial Day or any of the other holidays where we acknowledge our veterans.
Yeah.
And a place where people can, it would be nicely manicured and things like that to encourage people to pay respect to those who served.
Sounds great.
Well, thank you for the.
More to
update.
come, as they say,
Appreciate
right?
Oh, yeah.
More to come.
it. And John, thank you for the
Thanks,
input.
Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay, moving on to pending business. We have none, I don't think. Date for the chief.
The one in downtown Walled Lake.
It was a busy month last
The
month.
old one.
Thank you. It was a busy month last month. I'm not going to add a whole lot. I think we have some training coming up. It's all in my notes there, so it's going to be good. We recertifications in our legal update, AED, CPR, and as a matter of fact, our village office is going to be trained in that too, as well as the DPW coming up in the next couple of months, we hope. So, other than that, Just busy. I'll see you when I get back from Florida.
Good time to
Okay.
go.
Mike?
Mr. President, as was stated earlier, Bill Bozinski is back as of February 4th. He's on a kind of limited schedule, doing about 4-hour stint on Monday and Friday. The Monday-Friday thing seems to work very well for us in the sense that he can cite a lot of people on Friday, give them the weekend to straighten up and fly right, and then, come back on Monday to see whether that's been the case. Jeff, as you quite correctly recalled, is working on Tuesdays and Thursdays for the several years he was here. But anyway, it's good to have Bill back, and I'd like to be part of any meeting. He's a very easygoing guy. He's going to be great for us. He already is. And when you get to know him, or if you happen to meet him, you'll like him a lot. We did we have a permit that we need to apply for every year that allows for us to do chemical applications, and that's been applied for, not approved yet. Aquaweed, at the direction of Paul Hausler from Progressive A&E, has done that. I just wanted to make sure you knew that that was in process and that was going to happen. I want to give a shout out to our DPW, individually Andy Stone, Doug Worster, Todd Smalley, Hunter Smith, for what they've been doing over the last couple of weeks. It's been really hard. If you see them sometimes, their eyeballs are down to their cheeks, but they're doing a great job, and I know that because no complaints are coming our way. We've had a couple people pop into the office and ask that they be commended, pass along the fact that they're very happy. It's very noticeable once they hit Wolverine Lake and once they realize what our right-of-way is. Glengarry, for example, they can tell the difference. They know it's there. And those delicate situations that individuals that we all know from the past haven't had really too much to say this year. And there's the occasional, somebody threw a rock or the truck threw a rock up on the lawn or something like that. And there's a little bit of shaving of the lawn areas or something. But for the most, I can tell you unequivocally, there were no complaints that came my way, and they would have over the last couple of weeks. Great. So that's all I got.
Thank you. Council comments? Mr. Malik.
I'd like to agree with Michael there. I live on a corner, so I see a lot of it, but they have done very diligent work, and they've stayed on top of everything. So my kudos to them also. Other than that, I probably said more than I should this evening, so I'll let it go at that.
Thank you.
Again, kudos to the DPW for all their hard work, and everybody stay warm.
Park and Rec meeting this month will be on the 25th, right, Mark? 25th here, 7 o'clock, because of President's Day.
Yeah, we'll go to John.
So opposite the clock here all of a sudden?
Sure.
We actually had some pre-meeting discussions between Jennifer. Very quickly, the Water Board in the March meeting will be bringing in a wonderful counselor and discussing both the responsibilities, which is an extension of the letter that you have on file and we have on the website, to our citizens. In the reverse, we're hoping to have a good turnout to discuss with the citizens what some of their exposures are legally operating within their associations and outlots. Come April, the board has been working on erosion issues, touch with Oakland County, state of Michigan. Come May, aeration and the reformation. Last night, a steering committee was formed with myself and Carol, your wife, Catherine, I'm sorry, I said Carol, Catherine in attendance, and we have a steering committee of representing the canal residents to determine what we could do to help the canal residents fight what is an ever-increasing, well, maybe the better way to say it is whatever decreasing water level. We had some anecdotal conversations there that when that canal was first dug, and you probably know that, whether that's true or not, that it was in some places almost 5 feet deep in sandy bottoms, so I don't know if that's true or not. But we have a sequence of things that we're going to do, and it's an interesting steering committee, and so we'll keep everybody informed about what we're doing. We'll need some budgetary discussions on this too.
I'm good.
Just to comment on what he said about the canal, when they put that in there, I knew two people very closely that lived there on the canal. And the DNR told them they could only go so deep and so wide, and they could only pile up so much material. And nobody wanted it on their lawn or wanted to pay to have it trucked away. So they said, whatever you can stack up, that's fine. Stop there. But I don't think they ever found any sand over there,
Okay.
not within the first 10 feet. And unfortunately, because the muck is decayed fibrous material, anytime you go down there with a propeller, you put it back up into the column of water, and then it goes down.
Plus all the lily pads that have grown up back there,
Yep.
and they keep,
It-
cycling.
you know,
cycling,
if-
so.
Probably, there's ways to do it, but, that's something that I think the residents of that canal are gonna have to pony up for.
Yeah, we talked about sand
But,
fluoridation and
um,
other areas to finance it.
Needless to say, the DPW gets an early start. I've heard them, and they're taking care of business. And the other thing is, I want to wish everybody out there who is going to enjoy Valentine's Day tomorrow to be safe and be careful, and fellas, don't forget to buy some flowers.
Okay,
Mr. President?
Yeah.
You guys forgot to vote to release funds for the St. Patty's Day bus trip.
That was on
That was on
consent agenda, so it's automatic.
It's automatic, yeah, well, we covered that. I only had one comment, and at a special meeting, I asked that we get the evaluation form out, which we did. We emailed it out, I got 2 back, I think, so far, so if everybody could try to get their evaluation form into me, that'd be great, sometime next week and a half or so. Okay?
Are we having an administrative meeting? I haven't heard one called,
Uh,
so.
I don't think we really have a need for one this week. As soon as we get all those evaluation forms in, I'd be
Yeah, we
happy
can
to
put
set
something
one-
together.
Be happy to set one
Yeah, I
up.
understand.
Yeah.
I just wanted
Yeah.
to make sure, wipe it off my calendar.
What, looking for evaluation on what?
On our attorney.
Oh, I didn't even see that. Is
Yeah.
that in our email?
It was sent out, what,
Last week.
week and a half ago, 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Week and a half ago.
Maybe I gotta get in and see, Mike.
It was an email, yeah.
Well, my
Sent it
emails,
out.
I'm serious, I don't get some of them.
Well, we had done our planning consultant and our engineer, and it was prudent to do our legal service too. so. Yep.
And it come over the,
It was through email from Mike.
no.
Always a good policy to keep the things at the wolverinelake.com address, so if you're not getting stuff, you really
Yeah.
gotta look in your mailbox and find out what's going on.
No, I look at it every day. That's the reason I'm saying I don't.
What kind of computer do you have, if you don't mind my asking?
Hewlett Packard. It's 8 years old, maybe. The village gonna put a new one in for me?
Don't buy apples for it.
No, we all should have a
kind of phone
tablet
do you
like
have?
this.
You know, I get everything else. I mean, I'll get in and see you. Not tomorrow, Friday.
Other than that,
Motion to adjourn?
that's all I-
Second?
motion by Sigwas, second by Duff. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you, council.